Watch what you do the next time you're cold. You reach out, you flick a lighter or twist a dial on the stove, and a flame just appears, instant, obedient, completely taken for granted. You've never once worried that it might not come. Now carry that same cold body, 15,000 years back, onto the open plain of Ice Age America, and take the lighter away, take the matches away, take away every easy spark you've ever known. All you have is one small fire on the frozen ground, and the plain truth that if it goes out tonight, the cold will quietly kill your children before the sun comes up. That fire is not a comfort out here. It is the single thin line standing between your whole family and a frozen death, and it is always, always trying to die. So here is the thing nobody ever tells you about the Ice Age. These people had no way to strike a flame from nothing whenever they pleased. Which leaves one quiet, terrifying question hanging over every camp on the continent, and the answer to it turns out to be one of the most human things we have ever done. To feel how much was riding on that flame, look at everything it was doing at once. It was the only real heat on a continent that could freeze a person solid in a single careless night. It was the wall of light that held the wolves and big cats at the edge of the dark while you slept. It was the stove that turned tough meat and hard roots into soft, safe, energy-rich food your body could actually use. Strip the fire away, and what's left is a slow, soft, thin-skinned ape standing on a frozen world it was never built to survive. For an animal like us, out there, losing the fire was not a setback you'd recover from next week. It was a countdown measured in hours. Now here's the part modern life has completely hidden from you. Making fire from scratch is savagely hard. Forget the movie version where someone rubs two sticks and a flame leaps up. Doing it for real means grinding wood against wood until friction alone breeds a glowing speck of dust, or knocking just the right stones together to throw a spark into a nest of perfectly dry tinder, and then coaxing that fragile ember to life with your breath. On a warm, dry afternoon, with practice, it's merely difficult. Now add an Arctic wind, fingers gone numb and clumsy with cold, tinder that's damp from snow, and a family watching you in the dark. Trained survival experts today, with the best knowledge we've ever had, still fail at this again and again. Out on the Ice Age plain, on the wrong night, starting a fire from nothing wasn't just hard. It was impossible. So the obvious answer seems easy enough. If the fire dies, you simply make another one. And that is exactly the trap. The cruel joke of fire is that the moment you most desperately need it, the freezing, soaking, wind-battered night when your last flame has just drowned, is the exact moment it becomes hardest to create. Numb hands can't work a drill. Wet tinder won't catch. A gale snuffs every spark before it can breathe. The idea that they could always just make a fresh fire falls apart on the only nights that actually mattered. So the thing that kept these people alive was never really their skill at starting a fire. It was something far more demanding and far more relentless, because the real task was never to make fire. It was to make sure the fire never, ever went out. Think about what that actually demands. Not a spark once in a while, but a single living flame kept breathing without a break. Through the day and through the night. Through pouring rain and driving snow, through every march to a new camp and every exhausted sleep. One continuous fire. Hour after hour, week after week, season after season, never allowed to fully die even once, because that one failure could cost lives. That is a completely different problem from lighting a campfire. It is closer to keeping a heartbeat going. And a heartbeat needs someone always listening to it. So the flame became a job, maybe the most important job in the whole camp. Someone had to feed it the right wood at the right pace. Not so little that it faded, not so much that it roared through the night's supply by midnight. Someone had to shield it from the wind and roof it against the rain. Someone had to wake in the coldest, blackest hours. Again and again. To lay on another branch while everyone else slept. In many groups this fell to particular people, trusted keepers of the flame, whose care each night quite literally decided whether the group woke up in the morning. Their work was invisible when it went right, and catastrophic when it went wrong. And when the herds moved on and the whole camp had to follow, they faced the hardest part of all. Because you cannot pack up a bonfire and carry it across the tundra. So they did something ingenious instead. They carried the fire as a single, carefully guarded ember. A glowing coal, or a slow smoldering knot of fungus and punk wood, was tucked into a horn or a pouch or a hollow of clay, fed just enough air to stay alive but never enough to flare, and cradled through days of walking across a frozen world. A person could walk for a week with tomorrow's fire, breathing quietly in their hands, the entire warmth and safety of the group, reduced to one orange spark that must not be allowed to fade. Lose your grip on that, and you arrived at the new camp with nothing but cold ash. Come back to your kitchen for a second. Today you create and destroy fire dozens of times a day without a flicker of thought. Lighting a stove, starting a car, touching a screen that runs on a flame burning somewhere far away. It is so effortless it has become invisible. But for almost the entire story of our species, fire was not a switch. It was a living thing you fed, sheltered, worried over, and protected, exactly the way you'd care for an animal or a child. People sat up all night for it. People carried it for miles against their chest. Whole families arranged their lives around keeping one small flame breathing, because that flame was keeping them breathing right back. Let's be honest, though, because it didn't always work. Sometimes, despite everything, the fire died. A storm broke through the shelter, a river soaked the ember on a crossing. A keeper's exhaustion won out for one fatal hour. And when that happened, a group had two grim options. They could face the freezing dark and try, against all odds, to build a flame from nothing. Or they could swallow their pride and walk, cold and desperate, to a neighboring band to beg a coal from someone else's fire. In that moment, fire became something like money, a thing you could lend, owe, or be refused, and losing your own could leave you dangerously in another group's debt. The flame wasn't just survival. It was power, and that power reshaped everything about us, far beyond a single cold night. The warmth let our thin-skinned bodies push into frozen lands no naked ape had any right to enter. The ring of light turned the terrifying night into something we could own, a guarded circle where we could finally sleep deep and safe. The cooking, quietly, may have been the most powerful of all. Because heat pre-digests food, releasing so much extra energy that some scientists believe it fed the very growth of our oversized, hungry brains. And the hearth itself became the first gathering place, the warm center where people leaned in close, told stories, taught the young, and slowly wove the thing we call culture. Fire didn't only keep our ancestors alive. Sitting around it, night after night, is a large part of how they became us. So let's turn the usual question around. We always ask how ancient people made fire, as if the whole miracle lived in that first spark. But out on the Ice Age plain, striking a flame was never the real achievement. The achievement was refusing to let it stop, ever, holding a single fire alive across storms and journeys and sleepless nights and whole human lifetimes. The rare and precious skill was not ignition, it was continuity. And once you see it that way, the real answer to what these people were actually doing lands with a strange kind of weight, and a scientist would call it the very first technology we ever had, because the first great human technology was not a spear or a blade or anything you could hold in your hand. It was a relationship, kept alive by hand, without a single break. Picture a fire that is fed and guarded so faithfully that it simply never goes out, passed from parent to child to grandchild, the same unbroken flame crackling in the same family for a lifetime and beyond. In some camps, that one fire may have burned continuously for generations, an actual living thing older than every single person gathered around it, tended by people who were born to its light and died still feeding it. That is the answer to what happened when an Ice Age fire went out. The whole point was that, as much as was humanly possible, it never did. So, when you flick a lighter without a thought, understand what you're really holding. In half a second, you conjure the one thing that once demanded the constant, lifelong devotion of an entire people. The summit of a 100,000-year fight to never be cold, never be dark, and never be afraid of the night again. They spent their whole lives keeping that flame alive. They kept it alive all the way to you, and they carried it here too. When the first Americans walked into a frozen, empty continent at the far edge of the world, their entire future balanced on a coal cupped in somebody's hands. One spark of the old world breathing quietly all the way into the new. Every story we've followed on this channel, the people who feared nothing, who owned the night, who carried their broken and their old, was only possible because someone, somewhere, just out of frame, was keeping the fire. You are the warm end of that unbroken line. So tonight, turn on your stove and watch the flame sit there, tame and instant and utterly ignored, and remember that a person once gave their whole life so that flame would still be here for you. Tell me in the comments, whose job in your family is it to keep everyone warm? Go thank them. And the first chapters of this story are still waiting.